right, next item up is the spring athletic summary. We only need one chair for this one. Good evening, Art. How are we doing today?
Not too bad.
Okay.
So there's 4 pages that was submitted. The first page is just the memo page, which just talks about the sports that are in the spring, and then just the other pages that were in the report. One question was brought up. The school enrollment that I use is 1510. I always use the fall enrollment, and the only reason I do that is what is reported to the IHSA and what we are tagged usually right around that number that I have on there, 1510. And partly the reason I use that is when we get transfers, some of those transfers are ineligible to compete, so it's a little dicey with actually counting or not counting a transfer student, so I just always use that fall number. So that's why it's different from the other one. But you'll see on this first page regarding the spring, we did have our highest percentage of the student body participating in the spring over the last 4 years. We had 452 students, which is 29.9% of our student population participating in the spring. The next page is just our summary page, and I'll go through kind of real fast here and just some highlights.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Art, let me ask you one question on that.
Yeah.
Was it because of the revisions we made to pay to play, lowering it down? Do you think that helped increase spring?
Well,
Because that's like the last,
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we can talk more about it on some of the other pages where you'll see it more of a breakdown of.
All right, we can do that, then talk it down.
Okay. So our spring summary highlight sheet, I'll just go through each sport here real fast. Our badminton was 7-5 overall in dual meets. We took first place at our RB Invite, 5th in our independent conference. They took 6th at the sectional. Our JV was 7-6, 3rd place in the independent conference meet. And our frosh soft was 3-11 overall, 3rd place at the RB Invite. We had two girls medal at the independent conference meet. Baseball, when I submitted this, we were still at a game left. Unfortunately, we lost that game, so we ended up 23-12 overall, 12-6 in the MSC. We were regional champs. It was a great win over Clemente, and we lost to Montini 4-2 in the first game of the sectional. Finished 3rd place in the MSC. Our sophomore team was 25-3 overall, 17-0 in the conference, so they were conference champs. Our freshmen were 14-11 overall and 8-1 in the MSC. We had 3 all-conference athletes, and Will Kincannon was the conference MVP for the 2nd year in a row. He finished his career with, I think, about 5 RB records, school records, so outstanding career for him. Our girls soccer program was 7-10-1 overall, 4-2 in the MSC. Finished 3rd in conference. We lost in the regional championship game against Glenbard South 2-1 in double overtime. Our junior varsity was 3-13-1 overall, 2-3 in the MSC. It's one thing to point out, sometimes with these records, they're a little misleading. Our JV is sophomores, and a lot of schools that we played, their JV are juniors and sophomores, and sometimes even seniors. So sometimes the record isn't reflective of the overall performance. Our freshmen were 6-8-3 overall, and we had 4 all-conference athletes. Softball team finished 14-22 overall, 7-5 in conference. 3rd place they finished 3rd in the conference. We lost in the regional championship game to Montini, 10-0. Montini went on to win the sectional. They knocked off Glenbard South, which was a 2-time state champion. So we lost to a number 1 seeded team, very good team. Our junior varsity was 17-8 overall, 10-0 in the conference. They were the conference champs. Our freshmen were 12-12, and we had 3 all-conference athletes. Boys tennis team was 1-10 overall, 0-5 in the conference, and took 6th place in the conference tournament. Our frosh soft was 2-6 overall, 0-5 in conference, and also took 6th in the tournament. Our girls track and field, 5th place at the MSC track championship, 6th in our sectional. We had 1 state qualifier, Jackie LaBelle, and the pole vault for the 2nd year in a row. Our junior varsity finished 3rd in the MSC, and we had 4 all-conference athletes. Our boys track and field team were conference champs for the 2nd year in a row. We took 2nd place at the IHSA sectional, which is for the 2nd year in a row, which was our best finish the last 2 years. 1st place at the Gary Johnson Bulldog Relays. We had a number of state qualifiers. Louis Grigoletti in the discus, Gerard Moody in the 110 and 300 hurdles, Louis Rogers in the 110 and 300 hurdles, Dan Curtin in the 1600 meter, and our 4x4 relay team. Our frosh soft team was also conference champs for the 2nd year in a row. And we had 14 all-conference athletes on our boys team. Boys volleyball was 13-25 overall. We were the IHSA regional champions. That's another reflection of our strength of schedule, although the record doesn't show, but we compete at a very high level with some of these teams, which allows us, when we hit the playoffs, to have some success. We lost to Morton in the first game of the sectional championship. Morton went on to be the sectional champion. Those other 2 bullet points actually were misprint, so that was from the previous report, so cancel those out. Our sophomores were 17-20 overall. Our freshman A team was 12-15-2 overall, and our freshman B team was 6-4. Girls water polo was 11-18 overall, and we lost to LT in the sectional game 16-3. Our junior varsity was 12-16-1. We had a lot of young girls this year that came out for the first time, which was good. So we're
12
excited
or
about
2?
the future. Our 2-16-1 overall for the junior varsity. Boys water polo was 15-15-1 overall, which I believe is one of our best records in probably the last 10 years. So we're heading in the right direction with them. And we lost a tough game to OPRF in the sectional, first game of sectional 16-7. Our junior varsity was 14-11 overall. Still our non-conference sports were boys volleyball, water polo, and badminton. And baseball, like I said, finished on Thursday of last week. So that's a recap of our spring season. I think overall it was a very successful season again. The next page is the last 4 years of the pay to participate comparison sheet, starting in 2011. When where we didn't have a fee, compared to now, this year where we had the 3 different fees: the 200, the 150, or 100. We had 452. In most of our sports, we went up. A few of them we went down by a few numbers, which you're going to get every year. The amount of wave students were down by 2. The pay to participate actual number, the last time it was updated was, I think Jen actually updated it today. I didn't see the number, so we had about 8,000, I think just shy of 8,000 that we still needed to collect at the time that I got this back in May 13th. Any questions on that?
It's your last page, Art.
The last page is something new I didn't have in the past, but it just kind of gives a breakdown of everything, and this will talk to, we can start to look at, was changing of the fee, did that impact the numbers? So that the first one is total number of sports per athlete. So you'll see this year we had 442 kids, athletes in one sport, 262 in 2 sports, and 41 in 3 sports. So, after 1 year of adjusting the fee a little bit, those numbers did, slightly go up in our 2-sport athletes and our 3-sport athletes. So, did the change in fee do that, or did we just, get those athletes that wanted to participate? I don't know yet. But it would seem that we did get, the goal of changing that was to get kids out for more than just one sport, and we did increase in those 2. So you'll see the revenue side, we really didn't go down much in revenue with changing of the fee. We're only about $9,000 less than what we brought in last year when it was $200.
Does that include the $8,000?
That'll be our total amount collected,
Okay.
yeah. So we're just shy of about, or a little less, or a little over 9,000 less than last year. The next column is total number of athletes per season. So you can see we went up in, compared to last year in every season. That last is total number of participation spots. That's roster names. So we're at 1,089 roster names throughout the year, which is, up 40-some spots from last year, and climbing back to that when we didn't charge. And the reason that back in 2010-11, where we had more roster spots, is because we had more 2-sport and 3-sport athletes.
Does that include overlaps?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that last box is just the overall percentage of, based on our enrollment of athletes. So we had a slight dip from last year, but we're still at that 49, we're still at about 50% of our student athletes, which I think is a number that we're going to be kind of always at unless we were to add a sport. We're probably always going to be hopefully around that almost 50% of our student population participate in athletics. Along that line, when you asked about a survey for the activities, there will be a survey hopefully going out tomorrow. We finally finished that. It will be on a Google form that will go to the entire student population. So it will ask questions, what sport were you on? If you weren't on a sport, if we offered this, would you be interested in this? And it kind of, if they keep answering the questions, they'll go on and answer more. If they're stopped, then it would just be stopped at a certain point. But it's going to go out to everybody so we can get some type of feedback on if they were involved, did they like it? How were their coaches? What was their experience? If they weren't involved in athletics, is there something that we could potentially offer to get them involved? So that should hopefully go out tomorrow, if not early next week.
Is Mr. Passarello doing something similar with activities? If not, can you share that with him?
Yeah, I can show them the form we made. It's a Google form that people get, emailed, and then the responses will come back, actually anonymously. You don't have to tag a name to it. It'll just come back and all be stored into a data, a spot where we can go and start breaking down the information collected.
Any questions for Art?
Art, do you know how we compare to other schools with this percent of student participation? Have you?
I don't. That's a great question. I can find out. Reach out to my at least the members of our conference and probably get that answer pretty fast. I don't know if they actually do breakdowns like this, but I can find out at least conference-wise. I think we're probably comparable to anybody. The one thing is we offer a lot more sports than most of the schools. Like in our conference, we're with 27 sports. A lot of them only offer like 22, so their numbers might be low. I could compare us to like an LT or an OPRF where they have the same amount of sports. Might be better.
More kids.
Except they have 3/10 as many.
3/10
Plus,
kids, right?
Right. But, a lot of these rosters are going to be capped at some point. There's only like a cross country or football where you can take, so say unlimited, that would be the difference. Where baseball is going to be pretty much the same at any school, or soccer is going to be the same at any school. So, but I can look into that and see where we compare.
Any questions for Art?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I'll give them all three at once, and then you can answer. One is, I'm sure everybody knows this in the room but me. When you say all conference, I'm not clear what that means.
Oh, all conference athletes, for the most part, based upon your your record, each school is given a certain amount of all conference athletes. So they are just deemed as the top athletes in that specific sport for our conference. It is based upon your conference schedule, not your overall schedule. So at the conclusion of each season, our coaches meet per sport at a certain school, and they will talk about the conference, talk about this season, who is deemed as the conference MVP, so who was the most outstanding player of the conference that year. Right now it's set up so like if, for softball, if we had 5 wins, you'd get 3 all-conference athletes. So then the coach will pick those 3. In some cases, there's like at-large bids where the coaches will talk, okay, here's my other player that I didn't have at all-conference. Maybe we vote them in based upon the other ones. So the MVPs are voted by the school, all the school's coaches. So, for example, with Will Concannon, the other coaches of the conference team voted him as conference MVP.
Okay, that helps.
Okay.
That's prestigious as other coaches. And the two other questions. The one was, we have a unique conference that we invited some parochial schools. I was wondering how that was working.
Well, it starts next year.
Oh, it starts next year,
Starts
so we
next
don't
year,
know
yeah.
quite yet.
No.
All right, and then, given the 27 sports that we do have, and you said some sports are just capped, you can only have so many members on a team. Do we have room to grow? Do we have some empty spots?
Well, I think we do with some, use the example cross country. I mean, we used to be in the 40s and we're at we were in the 20s. That's one that could grow. I think not that I'm asking, but if we start bringing back some assistant coaches, which we did this year, we're able to keep larger number of kids in certain sports. I mean, that's one reason why just for safety reasons you can't have. But I think there is some room for still some growth in some teams.
Okay.
I don't think we've certainly hit. I mean, like basketball you're going to have 19 kids, but there's certainly still, boys water polo, we can still have more kids out. Both the boys and girls cross country, boys and girls track, we could still go up in numbers, and we brought back assistant coaches, so hopefully that'll help, So yeah,
Okay.
and I don't think it's going to be a lot, but when you look at our student population, if it continues to grow, I think there's room for them still in athletics somewhere.
You said your survey questioned, was it opening the door for a sport that we don't have, or a sport that they would like to have been on? Your
Both.
survey.
It'll be out there of, the survey will say, here are IHSA sanctioned sports. If we were to offer it, would you? Or we don't currently offer it, would you? So we actually are supposed to do this every year, is do a participation survey. So lacrosse as an emerging sport, or boys and girls bowling, or something like that. So they, if we got a feedback where we had 100 kids would say if we had bowling, then we'd have it. Well, then I think it would be something that we would want to look into having.
But one of the concerns I know we had when we talked about cutting a sport was the fact that if you got to keep the balance between the girls and
Right,
the boys. So if
right.
you're to add a sport, you're going to have to bring the corresponding side of it. All right.
Correct, yeah. Because
And then-
right now, we are right on where you're supposed to be based on your student population.
Okay.
So Art, with the new conference, is there any sports that were non-conference that are gonna move to conference?
Girls golf will have a conference now,
Okay.
but the other ones still don't,
Okay.
swimming's not, and water polo's not.
All right, any other questions for Art?
Yeah, can you give us just, I don't want to take too much time, some color on how overall things went this year, where you had 2 assistant athletic directors and like the management of the program and, the bus, kind of just the management of, did the buses work? Did we have good
Yeah, I mean,
any problems with our fans or people at events, or, did it help having your assistant athletic directors? So you can just give us a feel for that part of it.
yes, I mean, having the assistant AD really helps as far as supervision of sports. I mean, the assistant AD's roles is primarily that of coverage.
Right.
And it alleviates my time that I have to stay after covering every event. So having them helped out a lot. I mean, they're limited because they're teachers. So as far as the daily operations, rainouts, this, that, changing of practices, that's, I have to do that. So their role is basically to cover sports. And it helps a lot. They did a phenomenal job. They do the practice schedule with me, so they work with the coaches, and they help me evaluate coaches. So it's another set of eyes that really helps. The bus service for a student is, probably the best company out there that we can have. We still had issues, but every school has that issue of getting a bus here at 3:15. We'll have a bus show up at 3:30, 3:45, because they have other routes, or they get stuck by a train, or they have so it's, we didn't have no-shows, which was good. They're very easy to work with. They answer the phone when you call. The coaches have called, and they can tell them where the bus is, which is a huge, huge thing. Okay, the bus is 10 minutes away. All right, so at least we know we have one coming. So, as far as we did not have anything, any incidents at any events this year, which is great. I think it's, our coaches, our fans, our players all act the right way. I mean, like any school, we have athletes that make poor decisions during athletic competition, and there's follow-up. But as far as IHSA reports, I think it was probably one of my lowest years on having to do anything. We probably weren't even in double digits. I think maybe 9 reports this year that I had to fill out with a player ejection or something like that. So I think overall it was a good year. I mean, I think we're, from our lower levels up, I think we have some great athletes, and this new conference is an exciting time to see how it's going to go. And I think the future's bright as far as the level of competition where we're at. We'll probably find out within the next month or so here of where we fall in regards to the IHSA class-wise. I think that baseball and softball will also get bumped to the highest class next year, so it's going to change that. Our other sports, I think, are okay. But if we continue to grow, we'll probably be that small school in the largest division across the board. So when it hits playoff time, it's tough. I mean, boys track had one of the best seasons ever in school history, and some of the state times for the highest class are higher than our school records. So it's, we're fighting a battle that's tough with that, because we're a small school facing an LT, for example, in the state playoffs. So. But we're competing at a high level right now, and I think we're going to continue. So,
Art, now that you brought up that topic, I was going to bring it up separately. All change starts from somewhere. What are the chances of initiating something where we add a few more classes to some of these sports? So we're not competing against LT in every regional or sectional?
The
Because some sports, it
process,
seems, you could do it.
Yeah.
But if we're right on the edge, it's really, I think it's unfair. It's just the way where we're at. But, kids have great seasons and they can't really compete in the state series.
Right.
So that's one way to fix this would be, let's get some more classes. There's 8 in football, right?
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on that?
It's, there's a long process with it. They've been in the works to try to make, like, tennis, for example, is a 1 class right now. So we're going to Hinsdale for a sectional, which, I mean, we just don't, our kids don't play since they were 5 years old, so we're at a disadvantage when, some of these schools. But the IHSA looks at the amount of schools in each sport and then determines that the amount of classes that there should be. When there's ever a proposed change, it starts with a single school, let's say RB, where we'd have to look at and do a breakdown. Could we add a class, then we would take it to a certain level, get enough votes to try to get it to the IHS to get something passed. I think to add another class to boys track, I think would almost be impossible. But if it's something we want to look into, I can certainly start looking into doing something. It's just a challenge because maybe one year we would get bumped down. I have to see too with the multiplier for the parochial schools with the success factor plier now that's starting this year. I don't know where it's going to kick us. But yeah, it's a challenge because we're that small school in a big class, and it's
That should
unfortunate.
help us though, wouldn't it?
It could, yeah,
Because it goes by state series
correct.
success.
State series success, and it's a 4-year thing. So if a school gets bumped to that highest class, they're there for 4 years. So it might kick us back down. But it's a challenge. But I can certainly look into the
It's
process
something
of
worth
trying.
thinking about, I guess.
Yeah.
All sports, basketball, we're getting shafted in that.
Right.
Swimming's only got 1 class, too.
Swimming's only got 1 class.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
So Art, let me ask you another question. With the new agreement, with teachers' agreement we have, it opens up the door for volunteers. How are you going out and recruiting volunteers, qualified volunteers, to be able to work these sports?
Well, basically just word of mouth and getting it out there and getting and when I'm meeting with the coaches saying, okay, we have this opportunity now for volunteers. Get the word out there. Anybody that would like to volunteer that is qualified, let's get the bodies out here to help our kids. So
We put a
hopefully we'll
general
have,
posting of volunteer, didn't we?
yeah, and I'll make sure that's up there, like always up there.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Art, thank you, very great job.
Yep. Thank you.
I do have one comment for us, for board members, since this is our meeting. I think an aha moment for me, looking at our chart, we look at engagement for the students, and as Art was talking, there is a finite number of seats, and our participation is like .49. We would never meet 100% because there's just not enough seats, given the number of sports we have. We have little room for growth. But I think when we start to talk about that engagement, that's something that we keep in the back of our mind.
But we do measure it with clubs too, right, Laura? It's
Right.
not just sports.
Right,
And
but so,
other-
the sports, there is a cap, and it would never be at 100. So, I mean, we're almost there. That's like a kind of an aha moment there, that it's a different kind of measure.
Be nice to hit 50%.
We're
You're
close.
close.
We could probably do that.
Did you want me to talk about the graduation date at
Yes.
all?
Yes, that was a follow-up.
So I met with Chrissy and talked in length of the days. Unfortunately, there's not a great day outside of probably a Saturday or Sunday that would really work. I know the idea was, let's say we did it on a Thursday. Let's say we did it this year on a Thursday. The girls' track team, if we qualified for state, would leave on Thursday, so we would still have that conflict. The boys' sectional is based every year on who the host is, and it could either be Thursday or Friday. So if we moved it to Thursday, we could get bit, and the sectional could be on Thursday, so that could still impact us. Going into the following week, if we had it, let's say on a Tuesday, this year, boys volleyball played on Tuesday, a regional series. Wednesday, girls softball played, Thursday, boys baseball played, and now you're into the state series for track that would leave on Thursday. So that time of year that we have graduation, there is basically there would be a conflict every day during the week, most likely. So still probably, and I know it's the battle of parking and other issues, if we wanted to avoid all conflicts, it would have to be done either on a Saturday night or a Sunday night, potentially off venue.
Isn't
you know.
Saturday still a conflict if, like, the girls get into the state meet, though?
Yeah, if you did it Saturday night, they would,
Be able to
they
fly
would
back
probably,
from
yeah, they would be
Charleston.
able to get back,
Maybe.
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 Yeah, I mean, they could be.
So
they could
really,
be
if
that-
you really
Tough call.
completely want to do it, you had to do it on a Sunday, right?
Right.
Correct.
Or 3 weeks after school, like next week.
July 30th, how about June 30th? Would you be all right with that?
There's still sports in the paper today going on.
Baseball and softball.
Baseball and softball are the last two sports. The state championship.
This weekend.
Is this, yeah, I believe it's this weekend.
Unfortunately, our number one goal is to academically graduate these kids. And if they're on a sport that conflicts,
Right.
that's,
Well, the one thing
But it
that's,
doesn't preclude us from a Sunday. And maybe we can look at some of the intergovernmental agreements.
well, we're not opposed to a Sunday, but we cannot have it here.
Right?
So we need to find a venue that can hold about 3,000. I started to do the math. At 4 tickets per graduate, let's say roughly 400 graduates is 1,600 spectators, not to mention the 400 graduates, 2,000, roughly 100 staff. So we need anywhere between 25 and a venue that can hold 2,500 to 3,000 and have the parking for that. Now, with the potential of having, depending on where we're at in construction, should the stadium be demolished during the upcoming spring, we may have to find an off-site location to begin with or do it inside for next year. So we're going to make some phone calls. When Kristen returns, her and I are going to look at a couple venues with Mr. Passarella and have the assistant principal secretaries call a couple venues with like Triton and some of those places to see what it would be to rent it on a Sunday for a graduation.
Okay. Art, thank you very much. Appreciate it.